Well, Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation Minister Lindiwe Sisulu has emerged victorious in court. The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria this week ruled against an urgent application by Lepelle Northern Water Board's CEO Phineas Legodi. He went to court seeking an urgent interdict, challenging his suspension and the appointment of an interim board at Lepelle in May this year. The court instead ruled against him, saying the matter was not urgent. Now, to speak to us about this outcome is the spokesperson of the department, Yonela Diko. A very good morning to you, Mr. Diko. The court found that the department followed proper procedure and that the matter wasn't urgent. However, this doesn't stop Mr. Legodi from continuing his legal challenge of his suspension. How are you dealing with his employment going forward?
Well, I must say, first of all, the minister is satisfied and happy with the outcomes of this judgment, particularly because it affirms the steps that the minister has taken in trying to turn around these entities and trying to turn around the department itself. You will know that the water boards are a critical element in the value chain of water provision in the country. They are responsible for managing dams, they are responsible for bulk water infrastructure, they are responsible for assisting municipalities. So it's always been critical that they must be stable in governance, stable in financial management, stable in leadership, and of course, their ability to provide services. So what this does is that it tells the minister that the steps that you've taken are legally sound, the steps that you've taken are correct, and if the goal is to change how the effectiveness of this institution, you're on the right track. So we don't mind the fact that he can still continue at a later stage, but what we like is that the court has said that suspending him was legally sound and putting the interim committee was legally sound. Then he can challenge the details at a later stage.
How far is the investigation into his work and disciplinary process?
Now, what we had done is, first of all, I think when the interim committee came in, they were willing to give him an opportunity to explain himself, and in some of the earlier charges that he had. You'll remember correctly that firstly, back in 2016, there was this project that President Zuma had instituted, which was called Giyani Water Emergency Project, which was supposed to be completed in 9 months and cost $500 million. 3.5 years later, that project now cost $3.5 billion, and it's taken much longer. And SIU had to be called to investigate. So SIU is still investigating. In fact, they are meeting the interim board today to give them the details. And then, of course, you had issues that he had with the previous board, where there were counter accusations of bribery, and then, of course, he even had issues with the previous minister Nomvula Mokonyan. So it's a package of issues that the SIU had to be involved, an independent investigator had to be involved, appointed by the minister. So today, the SIU is giving an update. The team that had been appointed by the minister will hand over the report to the interim board. So in the DC, has been sent the papers, and I think by later this month, he'll be sitting in the DC, but he'll also face separate charges in court.
How do you respond to the argument that the minister is overreaching, doing the work of the Director General?
That's complete nonsense. Section 35 of the Water Services Act gives the ministers the powers first to appoint the board, 35 and 45 to appoint the board, and if she feels that there are financial issues that she wants to investigate in all entities, she can appoint anyone to go and investigate. The job of the DG is the administrative job, to sign off whoever the minister has appointed. So all the issues that came out at the weekend between an investigator who had been hired by the minister and the DG, it was all about saying you haven't signed the papers that the minister had asked that must be signed, because the minister has that authority according to Section 45 of Water Services Act to appoint, but the paperwork the minister is not involved in. So the delineation of the work is quite clear. Minister appoint, DG does the administration. There is no confusion there.
What does this outcome mean? Will the department proceed to recruit and put in place a permanent board?
Can you repeat that question?
Will the department continue to recruit for and put in place a permanent board?
Yes, that process is underway. Now, you'll remember that what the minister had decided to do is to do an investigation of all the boards because, as I said, that because of the critical role that they play and some of the problems that had plagued them. So you've got Amatola, a new board had to be put there, an interim board. You've got Umgeni, an interim board had to be put there, Sedibeng. So the issue here is that once an interim board has been put in, immediately the process of putting a new board, a new permanent board is in play. So I think people are encouraged to apply for the permanent post, those who qualify, those who have experience, those who meet Principle 7 of the King Code.
You've answered a bit into my next question. Does this outcome set the tone and free the minister up for the work of transforming the 9 other water boards, particularly Umgeni, Makhali's, where the boards were also dissolved?
You know, here is really what's troubling about what's been happening. You've got a department that for the past how many years has been plagued by cost overruns, accusations of corruption. It's been plagued for many years now. So here's a minister who comes in last year, May, and says that we can't continue like this. This is the water department has been plagued in scandal, has had cost overruns, has corruption. Let's change it. Then the key thing of changing that, of course, you have to start with the water boards, which are the implementing agencies of the department. They carry the most weight, they get the most money. Then the people who've been part of the problem for so many years, they decide to push back. You can go to Umgeni now, the board, they would want to challenge the minister. Now, the lack of consciousness that you have been part of entities that have been poorly performing, the department that has had so many problems, but you are pushing back at change. And it gives a wrong sense that people feel entitled to this role. People feel like they don't have a servanthood attitude. They feel like I was appointed, I've got a 5-year term. Whether this entity collapses, I need to finish my term. Whether this entity fails to deliver. I mean, we've got huge water problems in this country. And the people who are in place in these water boards have just been watching things deteriorating. But when the minister makes changes, try to make things effective, remove some, they fight back, they go to court. It's unconscionable that people would mess up entities, mess up a department. When they need to be removed, then they fight back. It's been puzzling.
Now, we have this problem that on the one hand, you're fixing operations and administration. But on the other side, you were talking earlier about the Giyani water emergency. The problem of water shortages has not been solved. And delivery of water is a problem in provinces like Limpopo, like the Northwest especially. It's the whole country, but those two provinces just come up tops in a way.
Indeed. You know, I wrote an article, I think, a few days ago, just trying to understand some of the challenges in various municipalities across the country, various provinces. Now, you will know that according to this value chain of water supply, the first sphere of government, that is called Water Service Authority, are municipalities. They're the ones who are supposed to provide water into households, water within a particular radius. Now, you then try to understand what is it that the municipalities are struggling with. One is they have a huge customer debt. Now, unfortunately, if you come to cities like Cape Town, people pay a lot of money for water, and there's a sense of stability in water provision, maybe a little bit in Joburg. So what you then have, you have water that is sort of corporatized in a sense that if you can pay, you'll get the water. Then you've got areas where the municipality starts providing water, and then people can't pay but continues to provide water. It's an unsustainable thing where you've got huge customer debt. In fact, according to SALGA, customers owe over 164 billion in debt to municipalities for water provision. But water is a source of life, so the municipality must find a way. And then, of course, you've got issues beyond that, issues of wasteful expenditure, despite those challenges, issues of irregular expenditure, corruption. So at the first layer of Water Service Authority, which is the municipality, We've got multiple challenges there, as I mentioned, inability to pay by many people and some who don't pay, and of course the internal problems of lack of technical skills, inability to meet the technical, the engineering expertise that are required in municipalities. Then at water boards, you've had this challenge of governance, of financial management, but water boards, of course, are responsible only for the bulk infrastructure and when there's expertise that's been asked by municipalities to come and assist, but they charge for that as well to create a sustainable system. Then municipalities don't have funds. So I think we have to encourage our people. If you can pay for that, that's why Eskom now is going around switching off electricity, because it's unsustainable to keep providing a service that is not being paid for. So we ask our people, if you can pay for basic services, that's the only way to sustain them. Otherwise, government doesn't have an open-ended scheme of money to just keep providing for services that cannot be paid for. But secondly, municipalities and water boards, which is the water boards the minister is busy fixing, but municipalities, in fact, with the research that I've done, you've got over 50,000 funded posts in municipalities that are not being filled, predominantly those of expertise. Of course, engineers, some don't want to go and work in Tabankulu, don't want to go and work in Pisana, maybe they want to stay in urban areas. Lack of skill. So there needs to be an exerted effort in recruiting the best skill, lack of an increased effort in customers paying for the service, even a little bit of money to pay, because that's the only way to make sure that municipalities are able to continue providing services. And of course, we deal with the issue of irregular expenditure. So I think once everyone takes that responsibility, customers pay, municipalities fix themselves, water boards getting fixed, I think we may find ourselves having this wall-to-wall provision of the basic services, water, and of course, electricity.
So, Mr. Diko, to end off our conversation, I'm going to ask you the most current and most topical issue about water provision during the fight against COVID-19. I'm going to include our viewers here because we asked them a question. The question is, has government delivered on its promise to make water more accessible during COVID-19? We're not able to put up the tweets as of yet, but I can just tell you, Begumuzi Mdebele says the government has failed dismally. Nothing surprising, though. They've failed to provide clean running water to the poor masses since the inception of democracy. How could they do it in 5 months? That's generally the sentiment on our social media interaction. How far is this process? How has it gone?
Look, on the contrary, I think government during COVID-19 has actually seen that they are capable of doing a lot. I mean, the first step that the minister had done was to say, how can we provide water in the shortest possible time in the first month, of course, of COVID-19. Then, of course, the idea that let's provide water tanks to all kinds of communities that have water challenges and be able to have a system of refilling those tanks and, of course, hand over some of the responsibilities to the municipalities. We provided initially 20,000 tanks, which have been very useful. I think there's been a couple of videos where people are being seen that they can afford.
We can't. We have to end it here, but thank you so much for your time this morning. Yonela Diko, National Spokesperson for the Department of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation.